Just yesterday, MTV was the
Get that
go-to place
video
to
raw and
consume
uncut.
music videos,
Yeah,
other
it seems
music-related
like.
content, and classic TV shows like Cribs, Pimp My Ride, Jersey Shore, and many more. But this has left people with a few questions, such as, why did MTV stop posting music-related content? How come MTV only plays ridiculousness these days? And what happened to the network that we all used to love? Well, to understand this, we have to go back to the inception of MTV. MTV was one of the pioneers of the music video. However, they were
I
not
was
the
in my
first. I'm
OBS.
not
My
going to
fault,
get
y'all.
into the whole history, but apparently the first ever music video was created in 1894 using something called a magic lantern. Throughout the 1900s, especially later into the century, obviously, music videos and black and white documentaries with music became a
Black and
common
white.
occurrence, alongside cartoons with music
I gotta
like
remember
silly
y'all
symphonies
history,
and merry
man.
melodies. They
I be
also had
tuned
things
in,
called
trying to learn,
talkies, and
research.
this whole era was just, it just sounded so goofy looking back at it.
Just know where I came from. Know where we came from. Fact that, and then when you really research and understand history, you now see, damn, I'm born into change. I'm seeing life unfolded. Like, best time to be alive.
They started putting music videos on TV, especially after colored TVs came out, and that's where MTV comes in. In 1981, Warner Communications quite literally launched MTV, which is short for music television. The first music video they played was for Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles, which I assume had to have been intentional. They also had something called video jockeys, also known as VJs, who were basically music video DJs. They would play popular music videos 24/7, which entirely changed the landscape of the music industry. Like I said, music videos were fairly rare and weren't really popular at that time. Unlike nowadays, where pretty much every artist has to drop a music video to pair with their song as part of their marketing to make it blow up. Eventually, every single big artist at the time began creating and releasing music videos on MTV. Def Leppard, The Cars,
and
Michael
one of the
Jackson,
main
U2,
TV
Van
channels
Halen,
at the
Prince,
time.
and pretty much everyone else from that era.
It's only
A lot
certain
of people
channels.
believe that Michael Jackson's videos for songs like Thriller and Beat It,
Everything's a system. Everything's done by order. Oh, there's a lot that goes behind the scenes outside of them singing and performing. A lot that goes on behind the scenes.
big reason that MTV grew so much. MTV was a station that you could just throw on and see multiple music videos from tons of big artists, some you might like, some you might dislike, and some artists that you might discover. As MTV continued growing, more and more labels and their artists began to appear on the network. Then in 1984, they hosted the first ever MTV Video Music Awards, now known as the VMAs. Basically, this was just an award show to pick one music video that was the best of the year. At the first ever VMA,
everything's a competition.
Michael Jackson rightfully swept up a bunch of awards for Thriller. Bob Pittman, who is one of the co-founders of MTV, said, "As MTV began to be a success, you then start worrying about what's our franchise. And what we knew was we didn't want other people to be giving out awards for video music and making it sort of a commodity. We wanted video music to be completely synonymous with MTV, so we knew we needed to do an award show." And I think that is the best way to explain early MTV, because music videos at the time were synonymous with this station. They also started rotating different types of music videos throughout the day, like new videos, breakout videos, light, medium, and heavy videos. I'm not quite sure what they meant by light, medium, and heavy. Maybe some of you old folks in the comments can let me know. I'm just kidding, by the way, but I'm guessing it was songs
Check
from
my
established
OBS real
artists or
quick.
small artists or something like that. MTV also started doing artist profiles as well.
Snoop D-O-double-G.
As the 80s were coming to a close, MTV had launched things
Black
like
America,
MTV News,
man.
where they interviewed artists and covered news predominantly about the music industry. However, they did touch on pop culture.
Best rappers, best singers, best athletes. We do it all.
Really was the go-to community hub to find new music, listen to songs you already liked, watch some cool videos, keep up with the music world, and learn more about your favorite artists. I mean, they had a ton of great exclusive video interviews back in the day with artists like Tupac, David Bowie, and many more. Old MTV was like if YouTube and all of its cool creative content about music was all condensed into one sort of TV station, and it was also the first of its kind. However, around this time they also began expanding into more pop culture related topics, launching shows like House of Style that was about supermodels.
Oh, my shit developed from like the 50s to damn near now. Now it's more technology and digital, but yeah. They were doing some damage back in those times. My, my father wasn't even alive yet. He was born in 1970. He came and changed, but it wasn't as nearly as what we living in, experiencing.
Remote Control, which was a game show. This was the first time MTV had made any shows about anything not directly related to the music industry. So clearly there was a shift happening, and they were experimenting with other sorts of content. In May of 1992, MTV launched The Real World, which was an unscripted reality show that became one of their biggest shows ever, and they began to see a lot of success outside of just music videos. It was a show about 7 younger people who they put into a house and had them live together, which became very entertaining. MTV is even credited with creating modern reality TV. And by the end of the 90s, MTV had decreased the amount of music videos they were showing by 37%. And it makes sense too if you think about it, because things like reality TV and pop culture related things are a bit more appealing to a slightly wider audience. Sure, music is appealing to everybody, but as soon as people heard songs they didn't like, there was a good chance they would just quit watching.
Buy records and shit in stores.
Battery's dead.
The LA Times
everything was done in
said
person. Now you could do everything right off the phone.
Fickle, and had a lack of loyalty,
Make your money,
which made
profit,
it tricky for MTV
benefit,
to
help
maintain
yourself and
their
others.
audience. The president of MTV at the time, Van Toffer, said, "Clearly the novelty of just showing music videos has worn off. It's required us to reinvent ourselves to a contemporary audience." And reinvent themselves is exactly what MTV did in the 2000s. By this point, MTV was huge, reaching over 77 million households in the United States. And they decided to expand out of just music-related content. They began to make adult animated TV shows, such as Beavis and Butthead and Daria, both of
movies had to do with music, music had to do with movies.
Were very popular, along with a handful of other shows. In 1996, they launched a channel called M2, which was entirely dedicated to music, as they were shifting the main network's focus to other things. However, M2 was not very successful. They still were doing music, and even started a show called Total Request Live, where they would play the 10 most requested music videos every day. And eventually it actually became one of MTV's most viewed shows. It was a live show hosted by Carson Daly, and was extremely successful, with fans popping out right outside the studio to catch a glimpse of their favorite artists. Total Request Live really was like the last bastion of relevant music content that MTV was putting out, with tons of great collabs, fun ideas, and a bunch of creative music related television. Around this time, MTV executives even said, "I think in the dead center of the music industry, TRL is certainly maybe the most important thing at the moment for those top 10 artists."
I like history.
Of course, they're a little bit biased, but I'm sure that it was fairly true. This helped MTV for a while when it came to their music-related content and maintaining audience interest. But then they pretty much moved away from music-related stuff in the 2000s, and this was for a few reasons. According to an interview with Los Angeles Times, in the 90s, MTV stumbled and lost its hold on this audience a couple of years ago,
about the money.
but after some self-examination and redirection, the channel was again hitting the bullseye. They were worth $8 billion and were one of the most profitable networks on TV. Them moving from just music videos to reality television and live shows like TRL really catapulted MTV back into mainstream success. And obviously, because that's where the money is.
Good thing we can work for ourselves now.
They wanted to double down on this method. Throughout the 2000s, MTV started putting out shows like A Shot at Love with Tila Tequila, Fear, Jackass, Pimp My Ride, Jersey Shore, and many more. Jersey Shore in particular was one of the most popular shows that they had ever put out. They also had shows like Teen Mom and Catfish that were also super popular. And you can't lie, even when they weren't just doing music content, MTV had a ton of classic and iconic shows on their network. Cribs, Punk'd, Pimp My Ride, Jackass, all of these were iconic for different reasons. To this day, we still got Sunny V2 making videos exposing them for faking some of this stuff. But again, a lot of these didn't have to do with music.
The MTV Cribs, outside of the television
the M
channels.
MTV. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when I was a kid, I thought MTV was literally just a pop culture platform with reality TV shows and things like that. I had no idea that originally it was just entirely a music related network. I was growing up during the MTV Cribs era and all those other shows, and as a kid, I didn't personally associate music itself with MTV as much as I did pop culture. Again though, at the time, this was not a bad thing. It was doing wonders for the network and bringing bringing in entire new audiences. Plus, by this point, YouTube had already been developed and began growing. The internet had taken over, and there really was no point in watching
came out
music
same year I
videos
was
on a
born.
TV network. The same way that websites like LimeWire and Napster destroyed the music industry and they were forced to reinvent themselves, YouTube destroyed MTV. Think about it. Would you rather watch
Simpsons be exposed and shit? It really be that shit. Really be true shit. Like that's
where you can't skip songs that you don't like and you have to watch the videos regardless of what it is? Or would you rather just go on the internet or to YouTube and search for exactly what you want, or have the option to skip whenever you want and basically just have full control? Clearly, the old MTV format was outdated. Even one of the original video jockeys, Alan Hunter, said, once YouTube came to be, it was all over. YouTube was MTV on steroids.
That's the new news.
I found
the news, everything. Entertainment, damn near movies, the new movies, celebrities before celebrities. I love YouTube myself. I'm on that shit all the time. It made me and inspired me to start getting on Twitch live streams and reaction videos, because this is the things I am able to do. I appreciate y'all for tuning in.
From a fan who said, I'm Gen X and grew up on MTV. I stopped watching when they stopped showing music, although I liked early Real World and some of the other shows like Liquid Television, but now I can just watch any music video I want on YouTube. And I know a lot of people say MTV died because they stopped playing music, which is definitely a factor, but had they kept their old format without changing anything, the platform would have died regardless. So MTV adapting to reality shows and programs like Total Request Live was clearly the move, and they were benefiting from it greatly.
Anything, I'll react to
things took a turn for the worse for MTV. On November 16th of 2008, Total Request Live ended, likely because Carson Daly left. And like I said, this was one of MTV's last music-related programs. Just a couple of years later, MTV dropped music television from their logo, clearly signifying that they were pretty much done with music. Like the LA Times said, outside of its annual VMAs Music Video Award show, and with the cancellation of TRL, MTV has long abandoned music as a programming mainstay. For years, all eyes have been on the genre-busting reality shows like The Osbournes, Newlyweds,
YouTube changed it all, wiped out everything.
The following year, in 2011,
all about
MTV
the population
released the show
and
Ridiculousness, which would alter the course of MTV forever. The show was hosted by Rob Dyrdek,
establishing the values for something and seeing who, like, what we like, damn near, what we consuming of.
Random funny viral videos off the internet. Ridiculousness was very popular when it first came out, which ended up not being a good thing for MTV.
Remember that
because
one too.
Over the years, as they stopped making other sorts of content and series, it ended up being the only thing that MTV would air. I mean, look at this airing schedule in 2021. It is literally all ridiculousness. I guess you could say that the schedule,
the memes and vines, and
that's not funny. However, in 2020, a journalist named John Gonzalez even wrote an entire long-ass article titled "How Did MTV Become the Ridiculousness Network?" in which he covered the extent to which they were milking the show. By the 2010s, MTV was basically reduced to a funny clips TV station that you're forced to watch when nothing else is on at a hotel. It was not going well, and their ratings were falling to an all-time low. At this point, most fans had probably forgotten about MTV, and the younger generation probably had no idea about the impact that MTV
we on YouTube,
they
TikTok.
probably just knew MTV for reality TV shows and some mediocre pop culture related
MTV
TV
died
shows.
out
It wasn't even the fact that they stopped playing music videos. It was the fact that they lost touch with their roots and weren't trying to evolve with the times. Instead, they opted for low-hanging fruit television shows like Ridiculousness and just decided to rerun it constantly. But then, in 2016, a new CEO named Chris McCarthy took over and tried to change things for the better.
The secret is we're leaning back into our strengths. You know, we have an incredible brand with 95% brand
see how they felt.
It was one of the largest libraries of youth and music IP in the history of television, and we have a creative culture that is one of the best in terms of storytelling. And we leaned back into that about 2 years ago when I took over.
Already know about
and really turned the ship around rather quickly. We reversed a 5-year rating decline in just 8 months, and today we're actually leading the industry in growth.
Things were going a little bit better better than before, but that isn't saying much. In 2017, they brought back Total Request Live in an attempt to go back to their roots, but that too was outdated. After just 2 years, the show ended in 2019. What seemed to be the final nail in the coffin was in 2023 when they laid off 25% of their domestic staff and shut down MTV News, one of the earliest and longest running programs MTV had. The only thing MTV still really has that has some sort of cultural significance is the VMAs, which ironically enough is still music related. Despite the new CEO's efforts, returning to their roots had failed, and MTV is just a shell of what it once was. The network had lasted for many decades, with many different types of cultural impact, from revolutionizing the music industry and music videos to essentially creating reality TV and
history is
tons of
interesting as
classic
fuck.
TV shows. MTV did have a
really can know how businesses work and how nice, interesting,
long and successful run. However, they couldn't keep up with the times, they couldn't evolve, and rather than keep coming up with new ideas, they got complacent and just decided to play ridiculousness over and over and over again. Like I said, YouTube was one of the many reasons that MTV failed, and one of the most iconic music video platforms on YouTube was Vivo, who I did an entire video about. So if you guys are interested about Vivo and the downfall of Vivo as well, make sure to check out this video that's on screen right now. Other than that, it's been Matty Balls, who shaved his beard and has a crappy mustache now.
Appreciate y'all for the video. Tuning in. See y'all again.